views and opinions of any of the guests of After Hours AM are not necessarily the views and opinions of After Hours AM, its hosts, its staff, or any of its affiliates.
Welcome to the After Hours program.
Are you ready?
It's alive! It's alive! It's alive!
Now broadcasting live from the After Hours AM studio, Joel Sturgis and Eric Olsen.
Welcome to After Hours AM. I'm your host, Joel Sturgis, and right along with me,
Eric Olsen. In a sense, it is welcome back because we had a week off last week. How did the rebroadcast of the bizarre? What was it? It was the Tulpa.
Yes, it was the Tulpa. Yeah, and folks love that one because it's such a strange case.
Deep in the heart of Texas.
Exactly, and so, folks, if you missed it, you can pick it up on podcast, of course. But, yeah, we had the nice guys from Hey Dare Radio Show come on. And,
That's right.
And we talked all about the case of Olivia. Oh, I'd have to look it up. But anyhow, really everyone that heard the show, most of you guys have by now, but basically they think that a thought form, of all things, killed her.
Literally killed
her. They found her dead for no apparent reason. Really nothing to really go on. So, if you want to hear the show, it is available for download. So go on over to After Hours AM over there at Podomatic.com. And you can go ahead and hit that download button, and you too can hear that awesome show. It's still up there for downloads. Don't worry, it's not going anywhere. But, I personally, the reason why we took the week off is I've been battling some health issues. And that has been no secret. I've been talking to my friends and family, and Eric, of course. And I just want to thank everyone for all the well wishes, knowing that I was a bit on the shelf. My breathing is getting better. Had some scares, had some answers, but the thing I'm battling now, of course, is high blood pressure. I mean, it just doesn't end, but I will be back in the saddle much, much better, much, much more complete within, I would say, next couple weeks. I'll be a brand new man, so I'm looking forward to that. But, we are coming to the end. It is the 15th of December, 2016, Eric, and we are coming to the end of 2016.
It is crazy go nuts. What a year.
And one thing I noticed, and I was looking around, poking around, I don't know that I've ever seen a deadlier year for celebrities.
Oh, this is, that's a meme, man. People are really well aware. I mean, look, and it's not just the volume; it's the size.
Well, yes. I mean,
Bowie and Prince in the same year. That is a big, big year. And more recently, we had Leon Russell, who's one of my favorite songwriters.
Well, I got a list here.
And Leonard Cohen, another amazing songwriter.
I got a list here that is current as of course. Alan Thicke, right? Alan Thicke is his name. He just passed away.
Yeah, that was terrible. He's only 69.
Only 69 years old, evidently playing hockey with his son, and he passed away. That was just the other day. But get this, we lost Natalie Cole, R&B singer. and daughter of legendary Nat King Cole. She died this year.
Of course.
65. Craig Strickland, rising country singer and the frontman of the Back Road Anthem. I've never heard of them, but, found dead at 29 years old.
It's crazy. But just today, Craig Sager.
Yes. Yep.
And his loud sport coat.
Well, you know who else died, though, was Frank Sinatra Jr. He died this year, too.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yep. And then you had, of course, David Bowie. He died January 10th.
That was a biggie.
That was huge.
He and Prince. Those are two of the biggest.
Yeah. That kind of set the tone for this year.
Just terrible. It's really been awful. And you add into it just all the turmoil. It doesn't really matter what your political persuasion is. That part doesn't matter. Just all the turmoil surrounding this election.
Oh, my gosh.
And its aftermath. It's just been
it's still going nuts. Watching the president-elect and how things are unfolding for his cabinet picks is quite interesting, I must say.
And all these connections to Russia.
That's something that stuck out to me is, wow, is he like, a really good friend of Putin? Is there something here that we should be more aware of? Because he sure is picking people, in my opinion, and that is actually factual, that are pretty cozy with Putin over there.
Yeah, absolutely. And think about this for perspective. My mother likes to watch Fox News.
Sure.
And my dad does not. He's a CNN guy. So they kind of go back and forth. But my mother's favorite
is Wolf Blitzer.
No. Is Shepard Smith, who comes on every day at 3:00. And he's a little more. He's not your typical Fox guy. He seems to be a little more his own man in terms of where he's coming from. But we turn it on. He comes on at 3. Switch over to there. And he just goes into a tirade. This is Fox News.
Yeah, and they're very Republican-friendly.
Very conservative-leaning, Republican-leaning. No question about it. They don't even pretend otherwise, which is fine. Okay, because we know it, right?
Yeah.
So he is going into a tirade against Russia, as far as Syria, as far as the Ukraine, as far as their behavior and attitude toward the U.S. and the presidential election. There's no question now that upper level, which everyone knows means Putin, literally were involved with, this hacking.
Allegedly.
Allegedly, but something like 17 U.S.
The evidence seems to be overwhelming. Don't get me wrong.
Anyway, he's going on and on and on and on about how serious this is and that this is not something to take lightly and that he is really very, very concerned. So this is on Fox News. So, that tells you something. There's some weird stuff going on. We've been saying this kind of all along.
Yeah.
I think we're running out of time that anything's literally going to happen before the inauguration. But I
think so.
There are so many different directions that this could go.
Well, the recount didn't do anything. You
knew it wouldn't.
It wouldn't come up. I kind of knew that. Everyone kind of knew that. I don't even understand why the fourth runner-up was even carrying at that point. In Wisconsin, you get like 3,000 votes or something like that, some small, minuscule number. Why would she care?
Well, she claims she felt it was her civic duty
to
in essence, test the system. And to reassure everyone that, in fact, it did work.
Yeah.
That the totals were, in fact, correct and not tampered with.
Well, is it sour grapes on her part, or do you think that she was really trying to help Clinton win? I've heard so many different reasons, of course, murmurings, real reasons why the recount happened. Number one, I've heard that, she wanted to, hates Trump, absolutely hates Trump, and hoping against hope that Hillary would win in the recount, which did not happen. He is, fortunately or unfortunately, we will find out as we move forward here, our president-elect, and he will be our president.
It's coming up soon.
But I see a lot of conflict of interest already.
Boy, that's what I'm saying. There's so many elements to this. You got the whole Russia angle. You have and the entanglements, and then you have all of his business conflicts of interest. There are reasons why it is normal. It is so unusual for someone to leap, without even taking the step, say, of Reagan, who was the governor of California, from a completely different field, whatever that field may be. In this case, of course, business. Into politics, and to do it at the very highest level. It is so unusual. I guess the last one to do it really would be Eisenhower, but even he's a general, right? So, I mean, technically, he's certainly a part of the government.
Well, sure, at least he understood the inner workings.
Yeah, I mean, he was the head of the military.
So I mean,
he ran the war effort. He ran the U.S. war effort, or the Allied war effort in World War II. So clearly, he had to be diplomatic. He was used to dealing with bureaucracy, on and on and on. So even he doesn't really count. So, the bottom line is, this is the first guy, and I don't even know how long, who has leapt from completely different field with no political experience into the political arena, and doing it at the very, very tippy-top level. And we're seeing why that is such a difficult and complicated thing to do. Because if you are in business, you have a whole different set of priorities, right? I'm not talking about illegalities. I'm just talking about a whole different set of rules and priorities.
What confuses or what concerns me the most is the lack of separation between his private life and the presidency.
Exactly.
And how he's openly said that now his hotels be worth more because he is in the White House. I mean, that's just insane. That's insane. To even think about that. In my opinion, and of course, love him, hate him, whatever. Apolitically speaking, that is insane, and anybody outside looking in can see that this is not going to work. This is going to be a train wreck. That kind of mindset and that kind of working, that kind of setup is just going to fail.
It seems like it. And when you have the volume of people who are so dead set against him, and you have really kind of essentially the entire media, almost anyway, against him, people are going to be digging and digging and digging and digging and digging. And you know as well as I do, the guy's got stuff in his past.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
That he didn't have to worry about before, you know, because he was a private citizen.
Yeah. Yep, exactly.
And not even a public corporation. It's a privately held corporation.
Yeah, I just don't even... I just don't know, man. I'm laughing because it's just,
I just
wow.
don't see it. And when you factor in then the conflicts and the history of business dealings, what they were talking about, again, this is Fox. They were talking about on Fox. They had a reporter from the Wall Street Journal who was on Fox, on with Shepard Smith, saying his dealings and his cozy relationship, his close relationship with Russia goes back to the 80s when he was having a lot of financial problems. He was dealing with bankruptcies, and he was able to get money from Russia. Russia invested in him back in the 80s, and he's been very, very close ever since. How do you separate that?
Well, and none of that, though, was brought up during the election.
Which is odd.
Nobody, threw that red flag up and said, well, hold on here. You've been cozy with Russia for years, and you've been very pro-Russian to the point where you say, hey, I want to become friends of Vladimir Putin, of all people. I would have thought that just would have stood. I'm surprised the media did not go with that and run with that and say, blow that whistle, or somebody step in.
Well, I think, and we've talked about this before too, I think some of the things that didn't happen, some of the depth of digging and investigating that didn't happen was because, quite honestly, no one thought he was going to win.
Yeah, nobody did. They
no one in the media.
Yeah,
no one in the media
nobody in the media. They pretty much had Clinton winning. Hell, they probably already had T-shirts printed up and everything. Well, Clinton wins.
Have you seen the New York Times headline? Madam President.
Yeah. They
were ready to roll with it.
They were ready to go. I don't even think that they had anything for Trump printed up. should he'd won. But hey, it is what it is.
Well, they had to scramble, didn't they? We
They
all
did.
did. We were all.
They did. I was shocked.
all
But
caught off guard.
we got a great guest tonight. I suppose we should mention our guest tonight. We have a great guest tonight.
Absolutely.
Miss Susan
This is
Masino.
fun.
Yeah, Miss Susan Masino.
It's fun as we're heading into the holiday season. Things kind of loosen up. Last year we did so much on talking about Christmas traditions and kind of the dark side of tradition and the spooky side and the ghostly side. Haven't done that so much this year. But it's a fun time to talk up to broaden our horizons a little bit. So we have Susan Masino, who is a lifelong rock and roll journalist. She's the world's foremost expert on AC/DC, and to top it off, what makes her totally appropriate for our show is she is a paranormal investigator.
Yeah, she's got a couple of great stories too on the paranormal end and the rock and roll end.
All kinds of stuff. And to just top it off, she is the mother of our beloved Clarissa Cole.
That's right, she is. She is Clarissa's mama. And so
how about that?
We couldn't be happier to have her back on. She's been on this program a couple years ago. And we had her on 2 or 3 different times, and it was a great time. Can't wait to catch up with her, talk to her again. We always had great stories that she'd share, and I know she'll be bringing that to the new audience as well. Some of those great on-the-road stories that she would tell about hanging out with Van Halen and AC/DC and all that kind of good stuff.
The origins of classic rock, going back to the 70s. Yep, and that's the era I'm most familiar with. I was aware of what was going on in the 60s. I was alive, and I was a kid, and I was growing up, and I paid attention. I had next door neighbors. It was 2 girls, and one of them were sisters, obviously. One was 4 years older than I was, and one was 6 years older. So they were much more attuned to what was going on in pop culture. And I remember so vividly, I was only, 6, I guess, when the Beatles came to America. But they were so freaked out about it and so totally into it. And I'd go over to their house, and they'd play records for me. And we just had a grand old time. I'm still in touch with the older of the 2 girls. She's not a girl anymore. She's a woman. Sadly, the younger one died a while back. That was very sad.
Oh, that is very sad. Yeah, sorry to hear that.
But anyway, the 70s is when I was really, really coming into my own, as a teenager and someone who was really establishing my own opinions about music and starting to play guitar and starting to be in bands and all that. So the area that she is most familiar with is the area I am also the most familiar with.
AC/DC, Van Halen, that 1970s hard rock era, man. I mean, it was great times, great music.
Classic time.
In fact, I mean, you can't turn on the radio without hearing these songs even today. In fact, my favorite is classic rock stations. In my opinion, some of the greatest music ever.
Classic stuff. So, and lots, that was the absolute peak of the age of rock and roll excess and hedonism, So, oh my God, if she was hanging out with those bands in the 70s,
can you imagine that? Meeting AC/DC when they're kind of a nothing band yet and they're doing the small gigs? You know what I mean? Where they're just kind of coming, hitting the scene. That would have been kind of cool. I mean, Bon Scott, she says, was pretty crazy.
Well, clearly he, drank himself to death.
Well, that did happen.
What, 30? I don't even know.
If he lived hard, died young, and left a pukey corpse.
He did, and he's a great singer. People still to this day.
Yeah.
He's considered one of the great rock and roll singers. He really only made a few albums with the band. Yeah,
he wasn't necessarily there. I don't think. Well, we'll talk to her about that. But I think that he only fronted them for 5 years, 6 years.
Yeah, he was gone by 1980.
Yeah,
they had Brian by Back in Black.
Yeah, and then where is AC/DC now? I guess we'll talk to her about that. What they're doing these days.
Still plugging away.
I haven't heard much. The last thing I heard media-wise was Axl Rose is taking the helm as the AC/DC lead man. But
for a tour, I suppose he did a good job.
Yeah, that's the rumor I heard. He did real well for himself. But that's good. I'm glad Axl, I guess, came back. I mean, come on. He had to do something right for once, right?
Yeah, you can only screw up consistently for 20 years or so,
Well, yeah, they always give him a second chance, a third chance, a fourth chance. So You know, okay.
11th chance. Yes.
You have a trip on the horizon, don't you?
Boy, I do. It is coming up Monday, so we will miss next week. We'll do a classic.
We
rerun,
will
I am sure.
encore presentation, and I think maybe we'll do the Krampus one, the one that we did last year about Krampus, and we'll get that rolling for everybody and stuff like that. So yes, you will still get your After Hours AM picks. It'll just be an encore episode.
It'll be amazing and epic. Yes, and I, my friends, will be in Finland. I am leaving for Finland on Monday. I'll be gone about 9 days. It is very, very exciting. I will be meeting in person for the very first time my twin baby grandchildren.
Really? That's cool. You all ready to go to Finland?
Oh, I haven't even started getting ready.
See, I grew up in northern Minnesota, and most of the people when I was a small boy only talked Finnish. In fact, I spoke fluent Finnish until I went to school.
That is so funny. And I do remember you telling me that. And you're one of the only Americans I've ever heard pronounce sauna like the Finns do.
Sauna. Yeah. It's not sauna. If you say sauna up here, they'll flog you. So be aware of that. If you're come up here and say sauna, you better start running. No, it's definitely sauna.
And when you're talking about saunas, of course, you got to talk about windmilling. Oh, no, is it helicoptering?
What are you talking about? What do you mean?
Is it helicoptering or is it windmilling? And now it's been too long. I heard all about this from my Finnish daughter-in-law. Yes, when Finnish men attend the sauna, there's not that much going on up there. I mean, let's face it. So, you're hanging out, you're drinking heavily, perhaps.
Yeah.
And maybe drinking a little more, and you're in that sauna, and you're covered by what? A towel.
True.
So at some point, apparently, it is common practice. It is a bonding ritual for all
to
the
drop
men
the towels
to start helicoptering.
Helicoptering. Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Spin that baby.
I get you.
Baby.
See, now when I was a kid growing up, we'd go into the sauna, and when we were done, we'd jump in a snowbank.
Well, I think they do that too.
Yeah, but, we want something to wake you up.
But there's some helicoptering or windmilling. I can't remember.
I've never partaken in the swinging of my anatomy.
Me either.
So I don't know. That's a new one on me. I did not grow up with that tradition.
Well, my poor son was, telling the tale of his first exposure to it, and he was, of course, horrified. He was horrified. What in the name of heaven are you doing?
Especially if you have a very small aircraft, if you know what I'm saying.
Get thee to windmilling. Yeah, he said it was just crazy. He had no idea what was going on, and then eventually he figured it out, and they explained it to him, and
that's a little strange.
Those Finns.
Well, are you gonna be windmilling or helicoptering?
I kind of doubt it.
You doubt it? You're not gonna jump in the sauna? And
well, I'm sure I will do that.
Jump in the sauna, get in the real sauna now. The real wood fired one, and then go ahead, drop that towel, and start a windmilling.
Just get to shimmying.
That's right. Just, it's all about the movement of the hips. I'm assuming it's kind of like probably use a hula
shimmy.
Yeah, but you don't want to hurt yourself either. I could see where there could be a windmilling accident, and you might hurt
I'm a middle-aged guy.
Well,
let's face it, I'm a grandfather.
You are.
So weird to say.
I bet it does. I'm a long way from a grandfather, thank God, because my oldest, of course, is 3. And my my youngest as well. I got a little ways to go. So I got a little time to absorb that. I won't be a grandfather until well into my 60s, God willing. But
I think things being equal, yes, it sounds to me like that's a safe bet.
You're gonna have a good time.
It'll be amazing.
I know a lot of individuals that live up here that are from Finland, and I had spoken with them, and they said, "Oh yeah, it's beautiful there. It's beautiful." In fact, the reason why a lot of the Finns came to northern Minnesota was because it looks identical to Finland.
Right. Well, there's all kinds of lakes.
Yep.
Absolutely. It's in forest and whatnot. We will be in Helsinki, so it will be more the urban environment. They live in a fairly distant suburb of Helsinki, but still, that is the main
just don't
urban area.
Just don't eat the lutefisk.
Oh God, no. Well, that's Norwegian.
Well, yeah, that is because we have that up here as well, and something called a pasty. If you've never had a pasty, you're not living life.
I believe I have had that.
They're pretty darn good. They're pretty darn tootin' good. But hey, man, it'll be a great. How long's the flight?
The flight itself, you know how the flying is these days. I'm flying from Cleveland to Newark. I got to wait there for 4 hours. Then we cross the pond and go to Copenhagen. I don't know what that is, 6-7 hours, something like that.
Wow, man.
Then I got to sit in Copenhagen for another 4 hours.
Are you going to be going coach or are you going first class, baby?
Oh, I'm not going first class.
No, but you're not going business class, are you?
No, not unless I get an upgrade. We did last time we flew over there. It wasn't to Helsinki. It was to Copenhagen because at that time, this was 2 years ago, my son and daughter-in-law lived in Denmark, and so when we got there, there was some big issue, and I can't remember what it was with the first flight, which was from Cleveland to D.C., and there was some really obvious problem. So they actually did give us an upgrade, and we got to fly from D.C. to Copenhagen in business class, and oh boy, that was fun.
Really? Okay. Well, no, I mean, that's see, first class, someone talks about, I've never had the opportunity to fly first class.
I think I did once.
And I've heard it's great, though. You're wondering what's going on. You're like,
so
what's
much
going
room,
on up
you're
there?
not crowded. In other words, the more flying gets to be a chore and a nuisance, which these days, my goodness, it is in coach. The seat, your rooms, available space gets smaller and smaller. I can't even imagine what genuinely big people do because I'm tall-ish.
Yeah, what do football players
really
do?
Tall,
Can you imagine me a football player?
Wide people, I don't even. How do they fit?
That's craziness, man. It's crazy. I hate flying. I don't like it. If I could drive there, I do it. I'm not a flyer.
Typically, yeah. I mean, sure. Unless you're really in a big hurry. I mean, obviously, it's a big difference to to fly to New York from Cleveland. I'm talking about in whatever an hour. Than to drive, which is kind of all day. It's 7-8 hours probably. Yeah. So that's a big difference. But I mean, it depends what you're doing. If there's an advantage to have your car when you're there, like. I'll drive down to Florida. That's no problem. I want my car. We're taking the kids.
I love the road trip.
It can be a lot of fun.
It's the fun of driving, and I do it. When I do it, I don't take the interstate. I take the back roads, man.
Oh my!
I'll take you'll go through those little stinking towns.
If you have the time, that really is fun.
Yeah,
and it reminds you of kind of more the real America, whatever that means. Certainly an older America.
Yeah. Back when routes.
Version.
Yeah. Did you ever hit Route 66?
Yes.
Really? What is that? Does they even exist anymore?
Only in pieces. I mean, technically, yes, it does, but it has become very marginalized. Okay. Because
I've always wanted to run the Route 66, and then someone was telling me the other day, you can't do that anymore. You cannot run 66 from one end to the other. It's cut up.
Yeah, it is. It is cut up. It's been replaced by the interstates.
And the interstates are so boring.
Very boring.
They are so boring.
You're replacing personality and local flavor for reliability and speed and convenience.
You know what? You throw in the AC/DC. And you just kind of drive. And
you just rock.
You just rock out while you're driving. And, that's what the interstates are good for. But, like, when I have to drive to Sturgis, South Dakota, from here, I will take the back roads because I like to go across, like, Devil's Lake and all those cool places. You hit the old westy kind of towns. You miss them on the interstate.
Absolutely. And speaking very specifically of South Dakota, it's funny you would mention that because we have relatives – quite a few, or at least used to, in South Dakota. And I was on a cross-country trip with my sister from L.A. back to Cleveland area, and we stopped to see relatives, and they're kind of off the beaten path up there in South Dakota. So we had to take some back roads
cool
across South Dakota, and it was very different and very interesting, and it was actually a lot of fun.
I bet it was. You don't get that Americana anymore like that.
Nope.
You know, it's something that's kind of going by the wayside, but we got to get out of here. We got to run to break. When we come back, you're America's Most Haunted Headlines. Oh, I tried to do that really mean, but it didn't work out. I watched Suicide Squad yesterday. I'm sorry. I tried to do it kind of mean, but it didn't work out so well.
I was slightly afraid.
So anyway, when we come back, you're America's Most Haunted Headlines. Don't go anywhere, and at the top of the hour, Miss Susan Masino will be joining us. So don't go anywhere. A lot of fun just starting. Anavar Media LCC is a dedicated team of professionals committed to helping business development scale and protect their websites, mobile applications, enterprise software solutions in the Northeast Ohio area. Locally owned since 2012, our client-centered values truly sets Anavar apart. Contact us today to learn how you can get 25% off your first project. Call them at 234-380-4852. Again, that's 234-380-4852, or visit them at www.anavar.com. Again, that's www.anavar.com.
It's Thursday night, and you're grabbing drinks with some friends. Start it off with a pitcher for the table, which quickly becomes two. There's pool. And there's the photo booth.
All right, everybody squeeze in. Say cheese!
Followed naturally by an order of wings. And another.
Can we get some extra ranch sauce?
Then there's the ceremonial nightcap.
So what are we doing this weekend?
And lastly, it's back to the car, which, if you're buzzed,
680 to 90, 10-4.
could be the most expensive night of your life. Getting pulled over for buzzed driving could cost you around $10,000 in fines, legal fees, and increased insurance rates. Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzzed driving, because buzzed driving is drunk driving. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
It's your ideas, work, and creativity that make it your yard. At ACE, we're here to help with hoses and sprinklers to nurture growth, gardening tools for the shape of good things to come, even the right fertilizer and bug killers to make the grass a little greener. You'll find it all now at ACE, your place, with everything you need for your yard, plus helpful advice, almost like we're right there. ACE,
the helpful place.
Do you have a question for our guest tonight? Don't feel like calling the show? Not a problem. Email those questions to afterhoursam@gmail.com. Again, that's afterhoursam@gmail.com.
And now, the final crowd puts to this case. Take about
Chocolate.
And welcome back to After Hours AM, everybody. I'm your host, Joel Sturgis. Right along with me,
Eric Olsen.
Mr. Eric Olsen. Hey, a little known fact about Eric Olsen. He also wrote the Encyclopedia of Record Producers. So he's not just a paranormal writer. He's also a rock and roll aficionado.
I am.
But that being said,
I'm a music guy.
You are.
My whole life.
You are
Absolutely.
a music guy. You are. And you are also the front man for the props.
I am.
You're a singer.
I am the male singer and one of the two guitarists. And the other two main singers, are my wife and daughter.
Cool. That is awesome, man. But anyhow, it is time for America's Most Haunted Headlines, with yours truly, Mr. Eric Olsen, reading these for your listening pleasure.
All right, my friends, head on over to Twitter and go to @AMHaunted, and you can follow us so you can pick up all this goodness every day of the year. We are your spot for paranormal news and just grooviness and Halloween-y stuff and just everything that's weird, strange, cool, and amazemo. Well, first of all, my good friend, and this is not her real name, but her Twitter name, she was one of the very first to follow me way back 4+ years ago. Cicely60. How you doing over there in Indiana?
We love you, Cicely60. We love you.
We do. We
Eric
really
loved you
do.
long time.
And she's got one of those cool cards, those, some cards that you see all over the internet. And this one's hilarious. It's got a little kid sitting on Santa's lap. Dear Santa, all I want for Christmas is more Halloween stuff.
What? Halloween's over? That's not fair.
That's her mindset. So we had to pass that on. All right, so it's the end of the year, right? So it's time for top 10 lists.
Here we are.
Rolling Stone just today put out the 10 best horror films, and I'll tell you, some of those were quite obscure. I got to be honest. I've only seen I think 3 or 4 of them, and more odd than that, even since I cover the field, I hadn't even heard of a few of them.
Well, the last list that the Rolling Stone had that we talked about, I did not agree with at all. So I'm sure I wouldn't agree with this one either, to be honest.
Okay, so they are, just real quick, The Love Witch, which I've heard really good things about. It's kind of like an old school Hammer homage.
Okay.
So this woman uses her powers, her sex magic, to enslave men.
The Love Witch.
And
sounds like a bad
really
sandwich.
To be pretty good. I've heard about that one. And then, of course, there's The Shallows. I don't know. Is that a horror movie? It's the woman against shark type. It's Blake Lively looking pretty smoking hot, I must say.
Well, that's all that really matters at the end.
Yeah, Shallows. So, I mean, sir, I've heard of it.
It's a great name for it, The Shallows, because if that's really all we're after is her, I mean, come on.
Exactly. We're very shallow. And so is the movie. So they like that one. Then the next one is Southbound, which I have heard of but haven't seen.
Yeah, me neither.
And then we get to Evolution. I don't even remember hearing about that one.
Me neither. I didn't even know. I've never even heard of that one.
I guess it's French. So, yeah, some of these are foreign.
And here's the thing is I do not watch foreign films that I have to read.
It takes a lot.
If I want to read something, I will go read my copy of America's Most Haunted again.
Well, that would be a wonderful thing to do, and thank you so much.
And you could also buy that, from Barnes & Noble. You can go there and get it. You can go to Amazon. Go ahead, get your copy of America's Most Haunted for your loved one for this Christmas season. They'll love you for it.
You can go through the Twitter account. It's
get a hold of us. Get a hold of me. Get a hold of Eric. Get a hold of somebody, and they'll point you in the right direction.
Absolutely. Pick that sucker up. Perfect Christmas gift. In fact, a friend of my younger son and daughter's voice teacher, their singing teacher, her, I think, sister is all super paranormal, and she bought the book and through the teacher requested that I sign it. I was honored.
Oh, that is quite an honor.
It was very sweet.
But anyhow.
Moving along.
I don't mean to cut you off, but I don't read movies.
Okay. Well, I don't blame you. I rarely do. Every once in a while, there will be, and I'm talking, I don't know, every 5 years.
Yeah.
There'll be a film that comes really, really highly recommended. People I trust, foreign film, and I will go see it. And it's okay. It's kind of fun to do once in a while to hear it in the native tongue, But yeah, like you said, you got to read it. So anyway, the rest of the list, I'm not going to go through it, but it's an interesting and sort of eccentric combination. Have seen 10 Cloverfield Lane.
Okay, first I want to say this. Their number one pick, The Witch, I flat out do not agree with them at all. It was a boring, artsy-fartsy kind of movie.
It is artsy. I agree. I liked it quite a bit and found it actually rather quite unsettling.
But should it be on this list of actual just scare the hell out of you movies?
Is it horror? I don't know. I agree with you. It's not traditional horror.
Number 2, though, Don't Breathe is scary as hell. So if you haven't seen that one yet, Eric,
I have seen that.
Yeah, I like that one. That should be number 1.
Yeah, that's a home invasion with a twist.
Yeah.
And all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's their list. Go check it out. Moving along, back to Twitter. And again, join us at AM Haunted on Twitter so you can see the images. All the tweets have pictures.
Hang out with us.
And follow the links. And hang out with us. Have a groovy time. All right, well, we were just talking about what a ugly year for celebrity deaths. It's just been so depressing. Just heard about Alan Thicke and just heard about Craig Sager and now Dr. Bombay.
Dr.
Bernard
Bombay.
Fox. Now he was 89, so I suppose we can't get too worked up about it. But who didn't love Dr. Bombay?
I loved him. It was great.
He was hilarious, and he was in Hogan's Heroes.
Oh,
He was in a lot of movies where he kind of played that same role, this kind of that upper class twit.
Yeah, he was kind of typecast for that.
And remember, he was the pilot, the old pilot who goes for one last run in The Mummy. Remember
That's
that?
right.
In the desert?
I do. Yep, I do remember.
Runs it into the ground.
You ran it right in the ground.
So he's been around. He's done a lot. Bernard Fox dies at 89. We salute you, Dr. Bombay.
We do. Sorry to see you go. Thanks for the memories.
Speaking of saluting, did you hear about this? That Sasha from The Walking Dead, Sonequa Martin Green, she will be the lead role in the new Star Trek series, Star Trek Discovery.
So they're going to end up killing her off then on The Walking Dead.
Well, that is the immediate
to
speculation.
Get her on the Star Trek, so she'll probably be the one to die after they come back from the stupid break that they always do every year. This
At
annoying
least this
break.
one's shorter,
It is shorter. We only have to wait till February.
This is only 2 months, not 6, 7 months.
Yeah, not the, see you in April. Not that going on. I liked on a side note, I thought the finale was pretty good for The Walking Dead.
It was. It gave us hope once again.
I like Negan, man. I like him. I find him entertaining.
Well, he is entertaining, but man, do most people love to hate him.
He's kind of cool, though. He's got a way about him. He really plays that. Jeffrey Dean Morgan really knocks out of the park. He really plays
He's got
that
a
well.
swagger, that's for sure.
Yeah, he does. He really does. Great.
It really is hard to picture anyone else in that role, really from the first moment.
Yeah. Yeah. He played that. He plays
owned
the
it.
hell
He
out
owned
of it. Yeah, hell yeah, he does. Does a real good job at it.
The common thread I'm seeing through all the fandom, which is of course all over the internet, the Walking Dead fandom, is they're not going to allow him to last as long as he has in the comics. Apparently he's still alive.
Oh yeah, the comics, if you go back, he's still somewhere in the comics. I'm not sure. But I did hear that people that have read all of them have told me, yeah, he's still kicking around, by the way.
I think he's imprisoned, but he's alive.
Yeah, I think they're condensing this, and they're going to make it quick. Get Negan out of the way.
I have the sense they have made him so loathsome and so despicable, and he is so hated that, I think they're going to have to kill him off.
I mean, he makes the governor look like, a nice guy.
He is by far the most loathsome of the villains that we have had. He's just, and you're right that he really has you can understand, the charisma. You can see why people are drawn to him, as far as his followers and minions. And so that just makes it that much worse.
Heck yeah, man. He's kind of like a cult leader.
He's exactly like a cult.
I've always toyed with the idea of starting a cult.
It'd be fun.
It would be kind of fun. Free haircuts and robes. Come on, join.
It's a lot of responsibility.
It is. And see, I'm not really much one for responsibility or joining. So, I'd toy with it for a little while, and then I'd have to let it go.
There's 2 strikes right there.
Yeah, I'd be done for.
All right, so have you seen Black Christmas? Is that one of your...
I have, and it was a long time ago I saw that. It was
all right. Well, the collector's edition is now out on Blu-ray, just in time for Christmas.
Cool.
From our buds over at Scream Factory.
Oh, I like that movie. It's not a bad movie at all. If you're into the Christmas horror stuff, you could do worse than Black Christmas.
Yeah, it's kind of held up as the class of the field, as it were. Of course, it's not a terribly classy field.
No.
Pretty terrible field.
pretty lowbrow, you know?
Pretty lowbrow. But that one, I agree. It does stand out.
It does.
All right, here's
stand out.
another list. Here's a list of the 9 scariest, or actually it's not technically scariest, it's the 9 best scary television shows of 2016. And I actually agreed pretty much with this list. Although how could they leave out our beloved Supernatural?
Yeah, how did that not make it? I mean, it is a paranormal show. It is a scary show. How did that not make it? What's number 1 on that list? We could be a little bit.
They didn't do it that way. They just there's
it's not
9
okay.
and that's not.
Okay.
That's it. So The Returned, which is a French series, it's been on Sundance. I did watch a season of that. It was quite good. I haven't seen the latest one. Bates Motel, yep. Been
Walking Dead,
that.
I'm sure.
Although
is on
I'm kind of drifting away now through the end of the 4th season because I'm not really that comfortable to see Norman actually now as his mother.
Yeah. I watched the first couple of episodes of Bates Motel, or Bates or whatever it's called these days, and I watched it and I thought, yeah, it's all right. But the movies I always thought were better.
Well,
more fleshed out, more entertaining. But yeah, I get it. And now I hear it's really, like you were saying, taking a twist into really Wrongsville.
He has now gone nuts, and he's had the split, the psychic split has occurred, and he is now literally this dual role, and he's completely unaware when he becomes his mother, and that's how they're keeping Vera Farmiga on the show because he killed her at the end of the last season.
Yes, he did. And, by the way, before I forget, X-Files has been greenlit for 11th season. By the way.
Excellent. I'm happy to hear
did
that.
see that.
I enjoyed that last one. It was only 6 episodes, but I enjoyed it a lot.
I did too. I liked it a lot. And they should make it into a full 12 now.
The only one on the list here of the TV shows I haven't seen at all, and I need to catch up with it because I've heard really good things about it, is Outcast from Cinemax. So that one I have no commentary on. But of course, American Horror Story's in there, of course. For the most part, I thought Roanoke was good. There's always issues. It
kind of fell on its head at the end there.
Yeah.
It kind of lost it for me anyway.
The very last episode?
Yeah, kind of just fell on its head.
I mostly agree, but the preponderance of the season, I thought, returned pretty well to its roots. Back to that first season, which really did scare the hell out of me. That first season. Yeah,
no, it did. It did really
Murder
well
House
until it sputtered to the talk about Roanoke, until it sputtered to the finish line. You
had meta upon meta upon meta.
Yeah.
You can only add so many layers, and then you just kind of
too confusing after a while, and you're like, okay,
very confusing by the end.
All right,
Boy.
I've seen too much now. I'm walking away, But hopefully, next season of American Horror Story, it won't be so convoluted.
Yeah, I hope so as well. Yeah. All right, next one is The Night Of, which was on HBO, and I was wrong. I'm sorry. I have also not seen that, so we got to get caught up with that. The next one is Stranger Things, which was the big hit of the year.
It was. It was a surprise hit, too. It did
Huge
real
hit.
well. And they picked that up for a second season, by the way. Netflix did.
I'm a little surprised they didn't include Westworld. Because it's clearly scary. This isn't just horror; it's scary.
Now, what is Westworld all about? I have not seen an episode of Westworld.
I think you'd like it a lot because it is really kind of hardcore in many directions. I mean, it is an R-rated show, and what it is, it takes the theme of the original movie, which was way back.
Oh,
with
yeah.
Yul Brynner.
Yep. I remember that one. I just saw that recently, in fact, that movie.
And that's what it's based on. But,
Okay.
of course, it's extended over an entire season, and now there's going to be another season. So it's much, much more complex. But it's the same scenario where you have an artificial world peopled by very, very, very human-like robots who are there to play roles so that people can visit. It's just like a really, really sophisticated, high-end, and ultimately dangerous amusement park for adults.
Just like what happened with the movie, where Yul Brynner went crazy, went rogue.
Exactly. And so that part of it is kind of extended over the whole season. You get a lot more in-depth look into the quote-unquote lives of the robots and into the creators. It was really very well fleshed out. It was very absorbing, and it's already been picked up for season 2.
Really cool, man. I'm happy. When it hits Netflix, I'll definitely watch that.
It's really good. It's really, really well acted. Absolutely.
Cool, man. Cool.
Evan Rachel Wood, who I've been kind of lukewarm on before. Sometimes I like her. Sometimes I don't really get her. She is fantastic in this.
Oh, by the way, before I forget, TV-wise, if you're a fan of Breaking Bad, evidently all New Year's weekend on AMC, they're going to go from season 1 all the way through on Breaking Bad.
Whoa.
So if you are...
Get caught up.
You need your Breaking Bad fix, because it's been off the air a while now. I know that people have been talking about Breaking Bad possibly. The rumor is possibly might come back.
Really?
That's been the rumor around Hollywood, that they might bring back.
You had the spin-off with Better Call Saul, but that's not the same.
No. Not as good. It's not as... In my opinion, it was not as good a show.
All right, so moving on from Stranger Things and an aside for Westworld, you, of course, have The Walking Dead. No disagreement there.
Yeah.
The Exorcist. Have you watched any of that?
Yeah, I have. Actually, I watched, I think, the whole season of The Exorcist.
On Fox.
Yeah.
I think it's very well done and very scary.
It is very scary. It's definitely different. If you're thinking of Linda Blair Exorcist, it's definitely different from that. I mean, it's the same premise, but just I think it's scarier. I do.
And there's more emphasis on the roles of the priests themselves.
Yeah, and their personal struggles.
Exactly. How did they arrive at this point? What are they going through? The dangers to them.
Yeah.
And it really makes let's face it, the devil real.
It does. It really
feel
does.
real.
Yeah,
feel
it
real.
does. Yeah,
and what is more frightening than that? I do not know. The last on the list, and I've only seen a couple episodes, but I saw this one that we have the picture of with Dallas Bryce and Black Mirror. That is on Netflix.
I haven't seen that one yet. It's on Netflix?
It's a British series.
Okay.
And they've been brought it to Netflix. And basically it's just looking, this season, which I guess is the third season at least of the British show, is looking at it's basically like British dystopian techno horror. And it takes, for example, the most iconic episode takes social media to its most logical, deepest conclusion. It is scary, really frightening.
Cool,
and it
man.
It feels possible. It feels realistic, which makes it so much worse.
Yeah, I haven't caught that yet, but meaning to. It's an old cue. Haven't had a chance to do that with everything going on my end. Oh my gosh, it's been crazy around here.
You've been busy.
I have been very, very busy, but I'm gonna catch that, and a lot of good shows are out there. It's just I'm really looking forward to the second season of Stranger Things. Yeah, that's the one I'm really looking forward to, and of course the X-Files when they come back. But Stranger Things, something the way they presented that, it was so period correct. It felt great. It felt like you're watching a show from the 1980s. They really hit it really well, and I'm hoping they can do the same
well
thing
acted.
again.
You like the kids. They were really great ensemble cast. The interaction between the kids felt real. Yeah, it was really good. All right, speaking of TVs, cool article, interesting. It's a little perhaps exaggerated, but what isn't? From Mysterious Universe, can televisions be haunted?
Really?
And so the writer recounts various cases where television sets have been reported to be haunted.
That I've never heard of anybody talking to me about a haunted TV set. I mean, I've heard of people say, "Oh, I saw a ghost in the reflection of the TV," when it's been off. But the TV itself being the source of the haunting, I've never heard. That's a new one on me.
It was new to me too. It's a pretty interesting article, and who knows?
Yeah, I mean, why not? I mean, we only give it our undivided attention.
We sure do. You're right. I mean, in terms of objects that we focus upon, I mean, what object do we focus more upon? I suppose these days maybe a computer screen or your phone
smartphone,
screen. But they're
man.
still screens.
Yeah.
Those are still screens.
Yeah, ultimately, yeah. I mean, I tried to watch a movie on my smartphone the other day. That's a horrible experience.
Oh, my God. Why do people do that?
I don't understand that. I fired up the old Netflix. I'm watching a little bit of TV on the old smartphone. My eyes started to hurt. Such a tiny screen, and you miss out on so much of the show.
My youngest son, who just turned 13 a couple days ago, so of course he had to get a phone.
Of course,
all my friends have had them since they were 12. Blah blah blah. So we get him the phone. I get it. He's got to be able to text and communicate and whatnot. He's had an iPad forever.
You should have a flip phone.
I should just give him my phone is what I should do. It's about 8 years old or something.
Yeah.
It is ancient. It's going to go in a museum. Anyway, so he gets the phone, and then instead of watching his usual assortment of YouTube videos and, clips and TV shows and whatever on the iPad, which is bad enough, now he's watching them on the phone.
Oh, yeah, I can't do that on the phone. I will try to watch TV shows. Like, once in a while, you'll send me a link for what we have to do for this show, the radio show. And I've thought, well, maybe I can just watch my phone. It'll be so much more simple. No, it doesn't work that way. You just can't do it.
Go blind.
Yeah, you'll die.
Or even.
Epileptic seizures will happen.
I don't get it. Believe me, I understand the whole convenience and portability issue. And sometimes, if it's a choice of nothing or communicating, or I should say watching something via your phone, sure. But if you have a choice, why on earth would you watch it on your phone? Well, I don't know. I don't get it.
Do you remember the good old days?
My daughter does it too, the 17-year-old. She does the same thing.
Do you remember the good old days? She
carries it around with her.
Yeah. Do you remember the good old days where the phone was mounted on the wall?
I do remember that.
And do you remember the good old days you could actually prank phone call somebody?
Yeah.
Remember those good days? Those days are gone.
I remember before there were push buttons in the phone.
You probably remember rotary dial or a party line.
Oh, that's even farther back. Yeah, that's funny. Party line.
A party line. There you go.
That even predates me.
That was Eric's first phone. Was the party line. Now, actually, everyone's first phone was a string and a can. But remember the good old days when you could call somebody up and prank them?
Sure.
Those days, those kids, these kids will never know the pure joy of calling somebody up and flushing the toilet into the phone.
Oh, you damn kids, get off my
Damn
lawn.
You kids, who is this?
All right, moving on, because we only have about, one or two more stories. Yeah. Really great article in a magazine publication online, new to me. I'm sure it's not new, but it's new to me, called Mel Magazine. And they review case studies of people who were brought back after they had cardiac arrest. So they were technically dead, and they were brought back. And it's a relatively small percentage, even in this day and age, who are brought back from full-on cardiac arrest.
Yeah, it's not a very good chance to come back.
What experiences did they go through? What do they feel like? How's their life different? Did they have a out-of-body experience? Did they have a near-death experience? Really interesting article.
What do you think? I mean, what's your honest opinion? When we die, do you think that we... what kind of heaven are we looking at? Do we make our own heaven, or is there one that you basically go join a club? I mean, how do you think it works?
It really, my opinion, like on so many things, is pretty flexible. In other words, I can see it from a lot of different perspectives. For me, within my own life, within my own spiritual world, the circle, and someone who goes to church, and I've been a Lutheran my whole life, I do believe that there is something more or less what Christians think of as heaven. I really do believe
I agree with you. I do. Because I heard a speaker the other day on another radio show talking about we make our own heaven and we make our own hell. So if you believe that heaven's going to be cheeseburgers or french fries, that's what it'll be.
Right. And I get that. And I also understand sort of more spiritually abstract, more, New Age or
that's
whatever.
That's a deep subject. I shouldn't have brought it up so close to the
Fox
News.
That is a deep subject.
That's a whole nother show on its own. Maybe we could tackle that as some show sometime down the road. We got rid of Fox News. When we come back, Miss Susan Masino will be joining us. We're going to talk about all things rock and roll and paranormal. Don't go anywhere. Be right back right after this.
Fox News Radio, I'm Kathleen Maloney. The verdict in the Charleston, South Carolina church massacre, no surprise. Dylan Roof convicted on all counts of gunning down 9 black parishioners in a racially motivated killing.
Governor Nikki Haley issued a statement after the verdict saying, "It is my hope that the survivors, the families, and the people of South Carolina can find some peace in the fact that justice has been served." On January 3rd, the trial moves on to the sentencing phase, where jurors must decide whether Roof should spend the rest of his life in prison or face execution.
Fox's Jonathan Siri. Even as civilians are being evacuated from war-torn Aleppo, the Assad regime is accused of atrocities.
We have witnessed indiscriminate slaughter, not accidents of war, not collateral damage, but frankly purposeful, a cynical policy of terrorizing civilians.
Secretary of State John Kerry urging the Syrian and Russian governments to seek a diplomatic solution and establish peace in Syria. Bitter cold weather that has the upper Midwest in a deep freeze is moving east.
Cold dips to -10 in parts of the Northeast with winter storm warnings that stretch from Oregon, where the snow buried Portland yesterday and shuttered schools, to Michigan. Officials in the Twin Cities also blame the bitter cold on at least one death there, where a woman died of hypothermia.
Fox's Jeff Manasso. A blizzard warning is issued for parts of upstate New York along Lake Ontario. The storm has already dumped a foot of snow in the Buffalo area, where dozens of schools canceled classes today. The markets closed higher, the Dow gaining 59 points, S&P adding 8 points, NASDAQ up 20 points. The dollar climbed to its strongest level in 14 years. Fox News Radio, fair and balanced.
We first opened about 10 years ago. We were small, just a few of us, but it was exciting. I always dreamt of having my own business. It was kind of slow at first, but things started picking up. We had big plans. But in our wildest dreams, we never thought we'd have this much work. Yeah, with so many businesses caught off guard by the storm, Reed Waste Management has never been busier.
What will become of your business after a disaster? Nearly 2/3 of businesses aren't prepared for an emergency, and 40% of businesses that experience a disaster never recover. Make an emergency plan now, before it's too late. For a free online tool that helps you develop an emergency plan to keep your business up and running should disaster strike, visit ready.gov/business. Brought to you by the Federal Emergency Management Agency, the American Red Cross, and the Ad Council.
Senator Elizabeth Warren says she is 100% concerned about reports of Russia hacking into the email accounts of Democratic officials. The Massachusetts Democrat also expressing concern that President-elect Trump doesn't want to listen to intelligence agencies. The outgoing Senate Democratic leader takes a parting shot at the FBI director.
In likely his final news conference here at the Capitol, retiring Senate Democratic leader Harry Reid again laid blame on Hillary Clinton's Election Day defeat on FBI Director James Comey.
He became such a partisan that he should become the new chair of the RNC. Okay?
Reid and other Democrats were critical of Comey's public statements about the FBI's review of Clinton's email server investigation less than 2 weeks before the election. Reid also tells reporters he thinks Russian President Vladimir Putin is clearly involved with the cyber attacks targeting Democratic Party officials. On Capitol Hill, Jared Halpern, Fox News.
A former TV star takes a bow on Broadway.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Former Saturday Night Live star Taran Killam, often appearing as different characters on the show's Weekend Update.
Thank you, Michael, for that enthusiastic introduction. So good to be back.
Joining the cast of Hamilton, taking over the role of King George III, January 17th.
I will send a fully armed battalion to remind you of my love.
Killam's been busy, recently finishing shooting his directorial film debut, Why We're Killing Gunther, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger. Jacqueline Carl, Fox News.
Alaska has its first retail marijuana store. There was quite a line of customers waiting when Arctic Herbery opened its stores in Anchorage. The first to legally buy pot in the state was an 81-year-old woman who says she uses marijuana for medical purposes. I'm Kathleen Maloney, Fox News Radio.
And welcome back to After Hours AM, everybody. I'm your host, Joel Sturgis. Right along with me,
Eric Olsen.
Is Mr. Eric Olsen, like he already said. But hey, Eric, man,
yes?
We got a heck of a guest. And she happens to be a friend of mine, but I'll let you do the introductions. But I just want to say it's been too long since this wonderful lady's been on After Hours AM.
Well, we have such interesting twin prongs to her life. Susan Masino has been a rock journalist for over 30 years, has written 6 books, created and hosted the 94.1 local stage radio show in the 90s into the early 00s and produced 8 local music compilation CDs. She appears, her own bad self, in the Van Halen DVD, The Early Years, and Let There Be Rock, the movie. Her book, her classic, The Story of AC/DC, Let There Be Rock, has been published in 11 languages. Masino just released her latest book, AC/DC FAQ, All That's Left to Know About the World's True Rock and Roll Band. Masino has also taught a 6-week continuing education class, The History of Rock and Roll, and a 3-week class, Rock and Roll Journalism, at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. In the other prong of her life, most of her life, she has been interested in the paranormal, culminating in a book entitled The Secrets of the Universe, Universal Laws, Past Lives, Ghost Adventures, and more. In it, Masino explores her lifelong passion for the universe and how it works. The Secrets of the Universe investigates synchronicity, positive manifestation, healing with light, numerology, past lives, and ghost adventures. She also speaks specifically about numerology, her many ghost hunts, including a brothel in Deadwood, South Dakota, famed Bobby Mackey's Honky Tonk, the famous haunted Honky Tonk in Wilder, Kentucky, and quite recently, Gettysburg. Welcome to the program, Susan.
Well, thank you. Hello, Joel and Eric. Thank you for having me, and happy holidays to everybody.
You too, and hopefully, your things are great down in Savannah for you. I know it's quite a bit of change from Madison.
Oh, it is.
The
but
weather.
I love it down here.
Oh yeah, it's beautiful, beautiful area down there, and it's been a little while, like I was saying, since we've had you on the show. So welcome back, and one thing we're going to start right off the top is, you spent a lot of your time, young years and up until recently, with rockers. And I guess, how did you end up, someone from Madison, Wisconsin, because you don't really correlate Madison, Wisconsin with the rock and roll lifestyle. How did that end up being?
Well, it was an amazing time to be in Madison. When I first started writing in the late 70s for a local paper, we were, at the time, you have to remember, there's no internet, okay? There's no, we had Midnight Special on Saturday night. You could see a band live. So print was very, very powerful at the time. So I got together with some other guys, and they put a newspaper together that came out every 2 weeks called the Emerald City Chronicle. And over a 2-year period, we saw and met and partied with everybody from the Ramones to AC/DC, Van Halen, Cheap Trick, Ted Nugent, Emerson, Lake and Palmer, Journey. Leslie West from Mountain is a friend of mine. It was a crazy and perfect time to be in rock. And all those bands played in Madison. They all came through Madison.
So is that mainly, I suppose, because it's a college town, Madison?
Right, yeah. It was a bigger market than it is now. I mean, a lot of the big shows now only go to Chicago and Milwaukee.
Sure.
And they skip Madison. But back in those days, the drinking age was 18. You could go out and see live music every night of the week in Madison. Madison was, there's a lot of people that come out of Madison, like, Steve Miller and Butch Vig and, a lot of people, in Wisconsin in general, Liberace, Les Paul.
Sure.
Just crazy. It's crazy how much Wisconsin has to do with the history of music that people don't really realize.
Yeah, not just brats and cheese, but rock and roll,
Oh, yeah. Great musicians.
More than just serial killers and brats and cheese. They're also known for a good rock and roll bands.
Well, referring to Clarissa, we talk about how we do have two of the greatest serial killers in the world that both came from Wisconsin.
That's right. Hey, if you're going to do it right, you got to be from Wisconsin.
We always like to joke that if you give us enough beer, cheese, and flannel, we will F you up.
I like that. Yeah.
Yeah. There's
interesting.
A whole code up there.
Susan, very, very similar to your kind of upbringing in music. I'm probably not real far off age-wise, and because that's when I was in school, was in the 70s, and I was also writing. I went to Wittenberg down in southeastern Ohio, and not so much did we have bands. We had some coming through the school, but I was kind of in a triangle between Cincinnati, Dayton, and Columbus. So like you say, you could go out any night of the week and see every band coming through, and in that time period, we did, and I was covering them for the school newspaper, and then after I graduated, I started. I really missed writing, even though I had a job, and then by then I was in Southern California in the early '80s, and I started writing about them. And just like you say, it was an amazing time, and print had so much more power than it does now, when it has none. And you actually get paid a little bit. It wasn't that big a deal, but you get paid a little bit. And it was just a very, very different world. And I agree with you. It was really a great time to kind of come of age in rock and roll.
Yeah, I was very lucky. Very, very lucky. Even the day that I met AC/DC, I just went down to the club to help the promoter out.
Yeah.
I had no idea who this band was.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that, because, they're really near and dear to your heart, not only because you know them, but you also wrote the bio for them, Let There Be Rock, and then, of course, the follow-up, AC/DC FAQ, Frequently Asked Questions, which both books, Susan, are just tremendous. Love them both. Love both of those books.
Thank you. Thank
you
so
much. Very well done.
Yeah, it was a labor of love for me, especially the Let There Be Rock book, because, there had been many books written on the band, and none written. Now there have, but at the time that I was writing mine back in 2004, and it was released in 2006, there had been no books written about anyone that had any personal contact with them.
Okay.
Maybe one back in the early 90s by this great writer in England that I'm Phil Sutcliffe. His book came out in 92, and really the reason why I wrote that book, I was hired to write that book because there had not been an updated biography of the band since the early 90s.
Yeah, and a lot of change since the early 90s, too, and because it's a rock band that's always been present. It's always been there, in one form or fashion. Now, when you first met them, were they as large as life as they are today, or were they much more low-key? Where were they at in their lives when you met them? And especially Bon Scott. What was Bon Scott like to party with?
Oh, God. Bon was a blast. I mean, just a blast. If he was in the room, he was the center of attention. He was the party. If Bon left, the party was over. Was really? The kind of feeling that he gave to everybody around him. And it's funny because, I just saw Angus last September. Not that, I saw him in Atlanta, but last year I saw him at Wrigley Field in Chicago, and then we met up at his hotel the next day. We talk about the same things that we talked about when we first met. We go back and talk about Bon and how broke they were, because when I met them, they were driving literally in a station wagon with a 3-man road crew following them around in a truck. And that they were broke.
They were even low budget. There were no budget.
No, there was no budget. And we have a running joke between us that has lasted almost 40 years. The night that I met them, I literally said to them, and I don't know why, it just kind of flew out of my mouth after I saw them perform, because then I was in love with the band, and I said, someday, you guys are going to be as big as the Rolling Stones, which they all just fell apart laughing. I mean, they were, and Angus being, you don't think he's sarcastic because he's so soft-spoken, but he really is. And he literally pulled his shoe off. He was sitting on a couch. I was standing in front of him, and he pulled his shoe off and stuck his foot in my face. And he says, "Oh, does that mean someday I'll be able to buy me some new socks?" And I said, yeah, Angus, someday you'll be able to buy some new socks. And now, he's got his face embroidered on them. So
yeah. I think they might have made it just
quite
somewhere.
A change.
Yeah, they might have made it. I heard that band AC/DC was going places. Yeah.
Yeah, but they're personally, I honestly have to say, they're no different than they were when I met them.
Yeah. Still, they've always been kind of like, they've always been more of a blue collar rock and roll band. Yeah, I mean, hard working, hard partying. I mean, they've always related to the fans that way of one of them. Yeah, I mean, they're, it's very much a band by the fans for the fans. Because they really still are, from all accounts, very down to earth, and still don't believe that they're huge yet.
No, not at all. I mean, it's crazy because, like I said, Angus is always sarcastic. And when I saw him last year, they filmed a DVD, which will be coming out of the show at Wrigley Field, they did amazing that night. And before I said goodbye to him the next day, I was teasing him, and I said, now you guys are bigger than the Rolling Stones. And he just kind of smiled a little bit, and he said, no, Mick and Keith said that me and Malcolm are still shorter than them.
Well, what did you think, side note here, before we move on a little bit, what did you think of Axl Rose fronting AC/DC?
I was extremely skeptical. I did the same as everyone else. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
And I went and saw him in Atlanta on September 1st, just a couple months ago, and he did an amazing job.
Good to hear.
He really did.
Good to hear. And he wasn't sitting in a chair this time, right? He was actually up and walking around.
Well, no, he was, and it was cute because it's an art to not run into Angus on stage.
Sure.
And right when they started the show, he almost ran into Angus, and he caught himself and twirled backwards and flipped around the other way. And I giggled to myself because I'm like, it's not so easy, is it, Axl, to stay out of his way?
Yeah, he's like a little Energizer Bunny up there. You just don't know where he's going to be.
Oh, I know. I don't know how he does it either, because the next day, I mean, I was still exhausted from, jumping up and down and singing along to the music for 2 hours and 15 minutes. I'm ready to die. And these guys are doing it, every 2 days they're getting up and doing that show. And I don't know how they do it.
Caffeine, lots of it. Lots of caffeine in Red Bull. Has to be.
Yeah. Yep.
And the Fountain of Youth. Don't forget about the Fountain of Youth. They evidently found it.
Oh, I know. Well, it's rock and roll.
I mean, the more it's kind of like anything too, though. As long as you keep at it, then you maintain your stamina. It's when you take those long breaks, and try to go back. Now that's tough as you get older.
Oh yeah.
You know, it's easier to just keep going.
Oh, God, yeah. Look at the Stones. I mean, they're amazing. I mean, I cannot believe what they do.
It is remarkable. It is.
I mean,
now getting into their mid-70s, you know? I mean, who would have thought?
Yeah, Mick Jagger just had a baby. Come on. His wife just had a girlfriend or whatever, just had a baby.
29.
I know, and he's got so many kids already. I mean, really, Mick?
One.
I mean,
he likes to spread a seed around. Come on.
On a serious note, that really does bother me because it's so unfair to the child.
Yeah, but he'll be spending Daddy's money. Don't you worry, Eric.
I'm sure he will, but I'm sure he would rather have Daddy be alive when he's 20. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I hear you. It is very unfair. You're absolutely correct. I thought the same thing right away. Thinking, well, you're never going to live. More than likely, you're not going to live long enough to see that child graduate high school.
It's very selfish is what it is, I think.
Well, I would have to agree with you. I really would. Now, you met other bands now, not in AC/DC, even though they have that warm spot in your heart. You met another little band. People might have heard of them, Van Halen back in the day, right? You might have heard of them.
Oh, God, yeah.
And you got to tell the elevator story. You got to tell that one. You know, I've heard it before, but that one never gets old. And Eric, you got to hear this story if you're a Van Halen fan.
I'm waiting with bated breath.
You got to tell us, Susan.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll try to not make it too long. So Van Halen's on their first tour with Journey in Montrose. They're coming to Madison, Wisconsin. They're playing at a theater that decides that the theater doesn't want 3 bands, so they bump Van Halen off that night. Not off the tour, but just that night. When my editor found out that they were coming to Madison, but they weren't going to play, which was like, oh, no. My job was I was in contact with the record label, and I called Warner Brothers, and I gave them two phone numbers to 2 different clubs in Madison and said, you can't let them come to Madison and not play. You just can't. And about 3 hours later, they called me back and said that they were booked into a local club the night, I think was the same night that Montrose and Journey were playing downtown. They played a club on the outskirts of Madison, and no less than 1,000 people showed up.
Wow.
It was crazy.
That would be crazy, a little club.
It was crazy. And they stayed at the Sheraton Hotel for 3 nights. The first night I missed, I wasn't there the first night, but the second night when they played, I went back to the hotel with them because they had a party. And I, the band, I love the band. They were a little scary. Alex especially was scary because he was crazy. I mean, he would drink and then, let's rip the thing off the ceiling. Okay, so you never knew what he was going to do. And so we're sitting around, and he asked me to go down to the lobby because they were waiting for the roadies to bring some beer back from the club to the party. He got bored, and so he said, come on, let's go downstairs and wait for him in the lobby. Oh, okay. So I go down the hallway with him, and we get in an elevator. And as soon as we get in the elevator, he starts hitting all the alarm buttons on every floor. So that's already happening, and I'm thinking, why did I agree to get into an elevator alone with this guy?
It sounds like you're trying to keep a 3-year-old in check. Don't touch that.
I know. So we get to, I don't know, we were on the 7th floor. We were down to about the 4th floor, and he stopped the elevator, and he got out, and he told me to hold the button, and he said, I got a trick to show you. And I said, okay. And he said, and so he got out, and he positioned himself where his head was in between the doors, and he said, let go of the button. And I said, no, I'm not going to do that. The doors will close. And he's like, yeah, that's the point. Let go of the button. So we got into an argument, and I'm getting this flashing in my head of, rock journalist kills Van Halen drummer in freak elevator accident. And he finally got me mad enough that I let go of the button. And the door shut on his head and bounced open. And he thought that was just the funniest darn thing he'd ever done in his life. Well, I'm kind of in horror. I'm in shock now, and I'm not sure what I should do. And so he made the decision. He got in the elevator. He liked to pick me up a lot. That was his thing. He loved picking me up. So he picked me up, and he threw me like a football out into the hallway and held the door open and said, now you're going to do it.
Oh, bad enough he did it. And now you got to do it.
Yeah. I know. And I'm looking up and down the hallway thinking, can I outrun this guy?
Yeah.
Probably not. So it took us a while. We argued a little bit, and then he got me so upset that I was like, fine, let go of the button.
Yeah.
So I let the elevator doors smash on my head, and do not try this. It is not a good thing.
Did it hurt? Did it hurt the doors? I mean,
it honestly didn't hurt, but the sound sounds like your head's exploding.
Oh wow. Man, oh man!
So I hate it when my head.
Yeah,
I know. It's a horrible sound, but it wasn't painful. Although it's a very dangerous thing to do. And after I did it, he laughed so hard that he literally slid to the floor, and he had tears coming out of his eyes. And I'm like, "Why is this so funny to you?" And he's like, "Because you're the first person that ever did this with me." He said, the crew won't do it, the band won't do it, none of my buddies will do it. You did it.
Wow.
And then he told
Diamond Dave will even do it. Okay.
Yeah, he told the band, and then I think the band was afraid of me.
Well, I'd rather be feared than, that way they stay in check. Now, you met all the rockers that were prominent, especially during the 1970s and early 80s. Did you ever run into Gene Simmons?
Oh, God, yes.
and did you ever have any words with him? Did he try to bed you the way that every other really? Oh boy. Oh boy.
Yes, it's in chapter 4 of my rock and roll fantasy book, which I'm working on a screenplay, by the way. I'm trying to get that made into a movie. And I was December 1977. Kiss played Madison, and then there was a huge party at the Edgewater Hotel in the Governor's Suite. And we got invited, myself and my girlfriend got invited to this party, and I was not a Kiss fan. The next day I was going to Milwaukee to see AC/DC.
Okay.
So I was kind of like, Kiss is kind of, to me, I don't know, I didn't care for it.
Yeah.
So I wasn't starstruck.
Yeah.
Like everybody else was.
Okay. Because I know that Gene Simmons is kind of, from what I've heard, is kind of like a bow to me kind of guy. I'm Gene Simmons. You must be in awe of me. But
God, yes.
Go on though. I'm sure it's good. I'm sure of that.
Well, and what I heard is so I met Peter and Ace first. And then, and this is when you didn't know what they looked like without their makeup on.
Okay.
So it was a big deal. It was like they had bodyguards. Nobody could, you didn't have your cell phones in those days. So everybody had to be checked for cameras, and it was just very high security. And so when, before Gene and Paul came into the party, I had heard that Gene hit on this woman who was married. Her husband intervened, and he had the couple thrown out of the party.
Wow.
So that's the little, thing that was going around the party. And so I'm thinking, well, I know that, I was warned by my editor. He said, everybody he sleeps with, he takes pictures of and keeps a book of it.
A little memory book, a scrapbook. Look, page number 29.
So it was my goal to not end up in that book.
No, I would not want to end up in that book either. You don't want to be in that book of memories.
No, I don't want to be in that book. So when he came to the party, when he finally showed up, in his boots, he was about 6'9", huge, scary, big afro, lots of gold chains. He was dressed in a brown pan velvet bodysuit.
Okay, wow. I mean, that just looks like what a picture you're painting in my head right now. 6'10", walking, yes.
And the best part is his belt buckle was a dead tarantula encased in plexiglass.
I need one of those for Christmas. One of those belt buckles.
I know. So as soon as he showed up at the party, everywhere he went, I made sure I was on the other side of the room.
I don't blame you there.
Every time he looked at me, I looked the other way, or I would turn around and walk in a different direction. And he was definitely checking me out. He was checking out everybody at the party.
Oh, yeah.
So I managed to avoid him, and there was another private party going on downstairs below the big party, and we were getting bored, kind of bouncing around, and like I said, I was not a big fan, so I was not in awe of these guys.
Yeah.
I was just like, a bunch of guys from New York, you dress up like cartoon characters, and good for you, that was it. And no disrespect to Kiss fans, honestly, but that's where I was at the time, and so we went out in the hallway, went down to the elevator, and we were going to go downstairs to the other party. And I'm standing there, and the elevator doors open, and I look right into a belt buckle with a tarantula in it. I mean, I'm only 5'5", and I was wearing flats.
And he comes up to you, and he says, "Come with me, Susan Masino. Be mine for the night, Miss Susan Masino. Bow to the tarantula."
I looked up at him and literally said, blank. And I turned around and started walking away.
Oh, boy, I bet that went over great.
And my girlfriend started following me, like, "What are you doing?" I said, "Just keep walking." And so he started following me, and he was hovering over me, and he kept saying, "Hello, my name is Gene. I'd like to know you. I saw you at the party," and, and I'm not having it.
Yeah,
I'm just not
come join the harem. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah,
so we got to the end of the hallway where there was nowhere else to go except an exit door, and I still wouldn't look at him. I still wouldn't turn around and look at him because I was just like, he creeped me out. So I'm standing there looking down, and he's trying to talk to me, and all of a sudden I look at him and I go, "Wow, I love your boots. Can I see your boots?" And he goes, "Well, yeah." And he leaned over and pulled up his pant leg, and when he did that, I ran out the exit door.
Well, it's a good thing. That way to end up in the book of memories. I could just imagine. Hey, look at it. Page 29. Yeah, look, I know that lady on page 29. That's Susan. Good thing you missed out on that whole debacle of being part of the Gene fan club, so to speak. We got to run a break. We come back. We shift gears, though, to paranormal, because Susan's also a noted paranormal writer, and we'll shift into that as soon as we come back right after the break. Anavar Media LCC is a dedicated team of professionals committed to helping business development scale and protect their websites, mobile applications, enterprise software solutions in the Northeast Ohio area. Locally owned since 2012, our client-centered values truly sets Anavar apart. Contact us today to learn how you can get 25% off your first project. Call them at 234-380-4852. Again, that's 234-380-4852, or visit them at www.anavar.com. Again, that's www.anavar.com.
It's Thursday night, and you're grabbing drinks with some friends. Started off with a pitcher for the table, which quickly becomes two. There's pool. And there's the photo booth.
All right, everybody squeeze in. Say cheese!
Followed naturally by an order of wings. And another.
Can we get some extra ranch sauce?
Then there's the ceremonial nightcap.
So what are we doing this weekend?
And lastly, it's back to the car, which, if you're buzzed,
680 to 90, 10-4.
could be the most expensive night of your life. Getting pulled over for buzzed driving could cost you around $10,000 in fines, legal fees, and increased insurance rates. Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzzed driving, because buzzed driving is drunk driving. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
It's your ideas, work, and creativity that make it your yard. At ACE, we're here to help with hoses and sprinklers to nurture growth, gardening tools for the shape of good things to come, even the right fertilizer and bug killers to make the grass a little greener. You'll find it all now at ACE, your place, with everything you need for your yard, plus helpful advice, almost like we're right there. ACE,
The helpful place.
Do you have a question for our guest tonight? Don't feel like calling the show? Not a problem. Email those questions to afterhoursam@gmail.com. Again, that's afterhoursam@gmail.com.
And now, final crowning touch to this cake. Take a bite.
Chocolate.
Welcome back to After Hours AM, everybody. I'm your host, Joel Sturgis, right along with me,
Eric Olsen.
Hey, Eric, man. I am really enjoying talking to Miss Susan Masino tonight, and I love the rock and roll stories, but, you know, Susan's also really known. Yeah, man. I mean, can you imagine that, being chased down by Gene Simmons with a tarantula belt buckle?
Unfortunately, I can...
Hey, baby.
I can envision it, and he's so arrogant and so goofy, you know. That
I'm Gene Simmons. Kiss the tarantula.
He's just shameless, you know. He's just shameless.
You know, Gene
Simmons
gotten
away with it most of his life.
You know, Gene Simmons is the inventor of the mistletoe belt buckle, by the way. But just saying.
Nice.
Just saying. Anyhow, he also wrote a really good book that's been out now, 2 years? Has it been 2 years? Secrets of the Universe. And that book...
Yeah, that's been out for a couple of years.
You know, and it's been really... I've read it a few different times. I have a copy, of course, that you sent me, and a beautiful, beautiful book. Really, really well written. One location, I really want to touch on this right away because we talk about this location a lot, and that'd be Bobby Mackey's Music World. Now, you had your own experience there, and very few people that we've talked to actually had experiences or even been to Bobby Mackey's. Most writers only write about it from what they've read. You actually went to Bobby Mackey's. What happened to you in that infamous Bobby Mackey's Music World in Satan's Emporium?
Yeah, I know. We went there for 2 days. One day was a meet and greet, Saturday night, and then Sunday night was the actual investigation. And we met up with a team from the East Coast with Shannon and Jeff Sylvia and a couple of other people, my friends Dawnette Springer-Cook and Tamara Springer-Gleason, who are both psychic mediums that live in right outside Eau Claire, Wisconsin. They're the ones that kind of, when I met them 8-9 years ago, we go on these crazy trips. And one of them was to Bobby Mackey. So we go down there on a Saturday night, and people warned me about the place. People said I wouldn't go there, and, oh, my God, it's the gateway to hell.
It's haunted as all hell. Don't go down there. Yeah.
You're gonna die. You know,
you're dead.
So I go down there, and the first night we got there, I didn't. You know, I'm learning now, of course, after many years of doing this, how to protect myself. And I wasn't in that mindset when I went there. I didn't take it seriously. I was there to have fun. So we go to the club, myself and two girlfriends and their cousin Chad. So there's the four of us. on a Saturday night. We walk in, there's music playing, but then Bobby's band came on later on. So we walk into the club, and we get over to the dance floor, and all four of us felt the room spin just once.
Wow.
And we all stopped. Yeah, we all stopped and looked at each other, and just as my girlfriend looked at me and said, "Did you feel that?" I felt something walk through me, which was horrible.
Wow.
I mean, it's almost like you can't describe the feeling of it. But something definitely walked right through me.
Well, you feel violated. You feel penetrated and not in a good way.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, yeah.
Were you the only one that felt walked through?
Yes. They're Reiki masters, and of course they had their shields up, so whatever it was bounced off of them and went right through me. And we kind of, it was kind of like in Ghostbusters, you've been slimed. I was like, ew, God, oh my God, that's so creepy. And we just kind of laughed it off and went on with our business, and we had a blast, and, we drank and we danced and we had a really good time. And the next day we got ready to go back. And then at night we were online. You could watch us online. Jeff Sylvia was broadcasting. And they turned, it was, let me think, I think it was February. They turned the heat off because they were filming. So you're in a dark, cold, really, drafty place to begin with. So it's not a comfortable thing. And I'm there, where we break up into groups, and maybe there was about, I'd say, 30 of us, and there was maybe 6 groups of 5 people each. And we took turns going like downstairs into the basement, all over the club. And one of the gentlemen, they were provoking in the basement, which I don't believe in.
Yeah, I was going to say that's usually a recipe for disaster. I mean, so we've seen at that location actually with
very specifically.
Yeah, the boys that was at Ghost Adventures. Am I right, Eric? Was it Ghost Adventures that got scratched up?
It was Zach. Yep.
If I'm not.
Yep. Zach got scratched, and after 3 times, they won't go back to that club.
Well, I don't blame them. I mean, you kind of get the crap knocked out of you, but it kind of makes you not want to go back.
Oh, I know. And so that night we go there, and so one thing that happened to another person there was they were downstairs provoking, and one of the gentlemen got held, like pinned up against the wall by something he couldn't see. When that happened, he went flying out of that club. I mean, he came up the stairs and he was out the door and he was done.
See y'all.
That was it.
Peace out. I'm out of here.
Yep. So, I picked up on things, because I am a sensitive, and a lot of the stuff that I picked up on was more of when it was with the mafia and the gangsters in that time era. I heard a lot of guys swearing at us and saying, get the F out of here and stuff, like they're sick of it because, they host ghost hunts every week.
Oh, wow. So they got a lot of people trudging through there then.
Exactly. Yeah. And so it keeps bringing it up. And so, we stayed until like 1 a.m. All there was coffee to stay warm, and I'm not a coffee drinker, and we didn't drink any alcohol. We left the club and went back to the hotel. We stopped and ate at the same restaurant, pretty much the same food. We got back to the hotel, and we had to drive back to Wisconsin the next day, which was a 7-hour drive. So everybody got ready to go to bed, and something told me to pack everything and lay out my clothes.
Really? So
I was like,
you just had this feeling that things are going to go south for me.
Well, it was just like, just be ready. Like maybe you're going to oversleep, or
Gotcha.
just be ready. So I got everything ready. I packed everything up, and I just had an outfit laying out. And I went to sleep. And about 5:30 in the morning, I sat straight up in bed, and like the weirdest feeling, I can't even describe what it was like. and all of a sudden I ran into the bathroom and started to projectile vomit.
Oh,
and
that's never a good beginning.
Lasted for hours and hours, to the point, where my friends had to wrap me up and put me. Luckily, we had their cousin Chad with us. He carried me to the car and put me in the back seat of the car. And my poor girlfriend, I couldn't sit up. I was curled up in a fetal position because I was in so much pain. And she had to ride all the way back to Wisconsin like that, but she did Reiki on me while we were traveling back, so I didn't get sick on the way back, which was amazing.
Yeah.
But as soon as they dropped me off, now this is Monday night. No, we came back on Monday, so it's Monday night that they left me at my house in Madison and to head up north to their place, and within an hour of them leaving my house, the vomiting started again.
What do you think caused it? I mean, outside of, like you said, no foodborne illness, because you guys pretty much had the same food at the same restaurant, and everyone was fine. What do you think caused your violent vomiting?
I think it was a psychic poisoning. I think because you've seen Zach have that happen on the show when he's gotten so sick he couldn't continue.
Yeah.
And I think whatever went through me the night before was obviously not a good entity, because I almost died. I ended up in the ER 2 days later, so dehydrated that I couldn't get up off the bed. And when they did all the tests, they put me, on several IVs as soon as they got a hold of me, and they did all these tests, and they couldn't find anything wrong with me at all.
Wow, that was a terrible experience.
Oh, God. I mean, you couldn't pay me enough money to go back to that club. I will never go back there.
Yeah, for everyone that's just tuning in, we're talking to Miss Susan Masino tonight, and her experience at Bobby Mackey's Music World. Wow. I've never heard of anybody, really, that has gone to Bobby Mackey's have that experience. And do you think that you could attribute that to really you being a sensitive? Maybe you were more susceptible to the psychic poisoning?
Oh, absolutely. And I was working on my Hank Williams book at the time. I was under a lot of stress. My marriage was falling apart. I was not in a good place when I went there. So it was, I was a target. I was easy. Yeah. If somebody wanted to attack someone, I was like a wide open target for whatever it was.
Susan, did you have any sense of the identity of what went through you? Did you pick up on any aspect of it, male, female, old, young, era, anything like that? Or was it not that?
Yeah, I kind of thought it was a female, possibly. At first, I thought it was the mythical Johanna that Bobby wrote a song about.
Yeah, right.
I found out that she really didn't exist; she was made up. But I picked up on a woman that didn't. It was weird because, I got to a point where I was so sick by the time they took me to the hospital that I thought I was going to die, and at that point, I didn't care if I did or not. I was that sick. So when I came out of it, for like 2 weeks, I was amazed. I know this sounds crazy, but I was amazed at my dishwasher, my washer and dryer, running water, all these conveniences.
Yeah.
And I realized that whoever was with me was from a different time period. And I don't know if it could have been, the girl that, they claim that they threw her head down the well and, she was beheaded. That is true. And not very far away from Bobby Mackey's establishment.
Wow.
So I don't know if that's who I picked up on, but it was a woman. It was, and like I said, for 2 weeks I walked around like being amazed by things that I grew up with.
Did you stop and tell her that running water isn't anything to lose your head over?
Yeah, exactly. I know it was just so weird, and I've been sick. I mean, I have been sick before.
Yeah.
I have never ever had that kind of. I mean, 48 hours, almost 72 hours of, I hate to say it, but vomiting.
Yeah.
For 3 days.
Wow.
There's no feeling worse than that. That is awful.
Yeah, it was really, very memorable. Let's put it that way.
I would imagine. I would imagine it is. And I mean, and you cover that, of course, in the book, but you cover all sorts of other things in the book, too. And numerology is one of them, which I've always found fascinating. And we've talked a little bit about that in the past. And of course, you run into the ghost of Bon Scott.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that. I mean, how you spiritually connect to Bon Scott. He's passed. How does he relay his messages to you and vice versa?
Oh, my goodness. Well, he watches over me. I always get free tickets to AC/DC no matter what, which is like times when I think, I already saw them on this tour, so I feel weird asking. So he always makes sure. And then if I'm going on a trip to see them somewhere, I always get money at the last minute out of the blue somewhere. So he always makes sure I have money to travel on. And he really haunted me when I was writing the Let There Be Rock book, because it was my first major publishing deal, and it was a huge amount of pressure, especially to what the fans, not only what will the band think of this, but will the fans like it. So I was under a lot of pressure when I was writing the book, and I had a major, just a full-out, 5-alarm panic attack at about 4 a.m.
Oh,
and
wow.
I went to bed that night, and I prayed to Bon, and I said, and this was when I was, just in the middle of the book. I had a lot of work ahead of me. And I begged him. I said, I can't do this alone. I said, I've got to have some help. I can't, if I'm going to panic like this, I'm not going to be able to finish the book. And I went to sleep, and he showed up in my dreams, which he does. And he was teasing me. He was dancing around, and he's like, "Oh, Susie," he's like, "it's going to be fine. It's going to be fine. You're going to do great. Just relax. Just let it happen." And, and just, it was just so cute because he was just trying to make me laugh. And honestly, that was the last major panic attack I've ever had. And that was back in 2005, maybe.
And now you're just chill, man. You're like, psh, don't bother me a bit. Pressure don't get to me no more.
Not like that. No, that was a lot of pressure, and it's so nice to know that the band loved the book. God bless Malcolm, his wife, rereads it all the time, and so it was. But it was. Bon had a lot to do with that book. It was funny because I wrote 300 pages and they only printed 200 because they wanted the book to be a certain size.
Yeah.
And almost everything that I felt came from Bon directly. Like some nights I would write and I don't know where it was coming from. All the stuff that was about Bon was hardly none of it was cut out of the book. It was hilarious. It was like he made sure that all his stuff got in there. And he made his presence known many, many times. Even before I got the book deal, I had a very vivid dream, which is, it's not often. When I dream about AC/DC, it can be years apart.
Yeah.
But I always write it down because, like, when I saw AC/DC in Italy in 2010, I dreamed it 5 years before it happened.
Wow, so it's kind of like a deja vu moment for you.
Oh, yeah. I write it down. So the night that Bon came to me before I got the book deal, he came to me and we sat on my bed. In the dream, it was during the day. We were sitting on my bed. We were laughing. We were joking. He was telling me all this information, but I didn't remember any of the information he gave me. But right after that, I got asked to write the book, Let There Be Rock, and I think that's what he showed up for, was to tell me, to prepare me for what was coming.
Wow.
So,
man, that's cool.
Yeah, it is. He's amazing.
He was kind of like he was kind of like your ghostwriter. That was really a ghost.
He is. Oh God, he is. Yeah, he is. He's always watching over me, and he always makes his presence known.
That is so interesting. Just listening to you, it reminds me of we had Joel. Remember when we had Christy Robinette on?
I do.
She has that relationship with Edgar Allan Poe.
I do remember that interview, and it sounds very much alike. You know, where
the coming in the dreams, and kind of helping out and looking over and just being, in essence, what we would think of as a guardian angel. Hey, this is, like we were saying, this is going so fast. I'd love to hear just any quick thoughts you have on your Gettysburg visit. Just in our we only have 5 minutes left. Hard to believe.
I know. It really flew by.
Well, yeah, Gettysburg is very active, very haunted, very heavy. There was so much death there that, to me, the air is heavy. As soon as we pulled into town, it felt like I was going underwater. And it is so sad to see, like, I walked the battlefield for, 2 hours. Mm. And it's so sad to see how open it is. People don't realize there was nowhere to hide.
Yeah.
You know, they were out in the middle of a field, and killing each other, hand-to-hand combat, because once they shot off their guns, it took a long time to reload them.
Mm-hmm. Boy, what?
So the death was horrifying.
Yeah, I can only imagine. I have not had the pleasure of going to Gettysburg yet, but it is on the old bucket list. But I do hear that from a lot of people that visit that, is just the weight of the atmosphere that's there, even to this day. And a lot of people report hearing noises and hearing gunfire and hearing a lot of different spectral things. In fact, seeing some ghosts here and there. And so, wow, that is so cool that you're able to get over there. And did it hit you right away, that the heaviness of the atmosphere?
Oh, God, yeah. Yeah, we weren't even in town yet. As soon as we drove down this hill that was coming into Gettysburg, like I said, it felt like we were going underwater. I just felt like a blanket had just been thrown over the top of me. Wow. Very heavy.
Yeah, that's some heavy stuff right there. I mean, I've had a few occasions, I know Eric has too, that you go into a location and you feel that pressure of it just feels like you're underwater. Even your ears pop, it seems.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, it's a whole different feeling. And the fact that so many people died there it's just so sad. It's just so, so sad. But it's a fascinating place. I mean, the history alone. But I don't know. I mean, I do want to go back, but I'm not in a hurry. Let's put it that way.
I would imagine. I would imagine that had to been emotionally taxing.
Beyond the broad heaviness, did anything specific happen? Did you encounter any specific spirits or the like?
Oh, yeah. I stayed overnight at the Farnsworth Inn, which that's where you should stay. It's very haunted. And I stayed in Jeremy's room, which is a little boy that died in the inn. He was hit by a horse and buggy. So he passed away in the building, and he haunts the place. And what's so funny about it is that, they said, well, you might hear Jeremy, and they have toys in his room. And I noticed before I went to bed, I took a picture of the bookshelf with all the toys. The next day when I woke up, there were 3 army men laying on their side.
Wow.
And I didn't touch them at all.
Man, we got to have you back for another show just to talk about nothing but paranormal. I'd love to have you back sometime soon just to do that, because we are at the end of another show. And we would like to thank you guys for listening to this edition of After Hours AM. And, of course, you can find out more about Susan Masino at susanmasino.com. But that being said, I thank you so much on behalf of myself, Joel Sturgis, and of course, Mr. Eric Olsen. We thank you so much for listening to this edition of After Hours AM. You're what makes this show go and rock and do all its things. So again, thank you for another successful year. Take care of each other and love each other, and rock on, guys. See you next time. Thank you for listening to this edition of After Hours AM, and please remember to like us on Facebook and also follow us over on Twitter.